Hello, hello. Hi, gang. Hey, if you're watching on YouTube, pardon my casual fare today. I'm dressed for a airplane ride because post-show today I'm headed to Los Angeles. Tomorrow night, Real Time with Bill Maher. I have to figure out, is it my fifth or sixth appearance? Fifth or sixth appearance. I'm not sure. But I like going back and I like doing the show. It's a pressure cooker. I'll talk about that on radio. Here is your Thursday poll question. Is the rise in political violence a reflection of deeper societal issues, or is it primarily driven by political rhetoric? Obviously, the answer is both, but if you're forcing me to pick between the two, definitely it's the deeper societal issues, not a doubt in my mind. And I say that in contrast to so much of what I'm hearing others say about this issue. Our friends at Parx Casino were doing something Philly-oriented on Monday night. Charlie Manuel, the skipper of the 2008 World Champion team, is going to be joined by three-time All-Star John Kruk, Ben Davis, former Philadelphia pitchers Tommy Green and Ricky Bottalico, all five former players in one place, Monday, 5:30, the Bet Parx Sportsbook. It's free. Seating is limited. But this is to get everybody fired up and, get your red towels out. So Monday, September 29, the Sportsbook inside Parx Casino in Bensalem. It sounds like a hell of a night. Really a great night. Charlie Manuel, John Kruk, Tommy Green, Ricky Bottalico, Ben Davis talking baseball at Parx Casino. Presented by Bet Parx Casino and the Sportsbook app, where there's always another way to win. You got to be 21. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Yesterday, the Wednesday result of the poll question at Smerconish.com. Will ABC still be the home of Jimmy Kimmel Live 1 year from today? Close one. 55.23% saying yes, 44.77% saying no, 32,523 voted. I don't know about a year from now. But long term, I just think the business model collapses. The cause chiefly is just the fragmentation of our viewing. And as I planned, those younger coveted viewers, in the younger demographic, they're watching clips. Well, you can produce those clips without staging the full production of an expensive show like Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert. That's why I just think that it's a competitive marketplace, and I don't think long-term those shows survive on that platform. And by the way, having said this, he set a record. In the first 15 hours, the monologue that he delivered was viewed 14 million times. And probably as I speak is twice that. So that's the Wednesday result. I also want to say, relative to yesterday, I was really pleased with episode 2 of the Mingle Project on YouTube. Let's talk about sex. If you haven't watched it, please do. It's not me doing a Dr. Ruth imitation. It's me with two smart guests and talking about how there's less sex among us, people of all ages, but particularly the young. Another sign of societal disconnect, another reason why we need to mingle. And one of the aspects, this was the second guest that I had, Faith Hill, yesterday. We talked about how, okay, if there's less sex, there's less procreation. If there's less procreation, there are less kids. And if there are less kids, there are fewer cousins. And I'd never stopped and thought about the mingling advantage that comes from having a big family and a lot of cousins. So I'm asking you, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and watch episode 2. Watch episode 2 and share it with a friend. Episode 3 is already planned for next week because I'm into this. And I think that we keep improving. Look at the tweaks as you watch, and you'll see modest improvements that we make in the production values with each episode. It's really going well. Okay, the Thursday poll question. Is the rise of political violence a reflection of deeper societal issues, or is it primarily driven by political rhetoric? The latest from Dallas. I'm reading from the Dallas Fox affiliate. A 29-year-old man with ties to North Texas and Oklahoma has been identified as the suspect in a Dallas ICE detention center shooting. He's been identified as the suspect, according to Fox. A sniper who killed at least one person at the Dallas ICE facility was a guy named, I'm not even going to name him. They say that Federal investigators removed a box of evidence from his home. You've probably seen the bullets that were etched. I'm looking at an image of them right now, anti-ICE, et cetera, et cetera. Consequently, from the Washington Post now, President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Harris, in public remarks, attempted to tie this fatal shooting at the Dallas ICE office to Democrats, casting the violence as a consequence of what they termed leftist rhetoric against law enforcement. By the way, let me make real clear. Has there been some leftist rhetoric? Yes. Has there been violence from the left directed toward the right? Yes, there absolutely has been. Is that predominantly what's going on here? I don't believe that it is. Notwithstanding J.D. Vance yesterday in North Carolina, you don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell. And you have no place in the political conversation in the United States. What I'm hearing in the aftermath of the Dallas ICE shooting reminds me of the one critique that I had of the Charlie Kirk Memorial. I thought it was beautifully done. I thought the speeches were appropriate. It was okay that they were religious. This was not an event, sponsored by government, even though there were a lot of government officials there. But my one note was I didn't like when they spoke of the they, Stephen Miller in particular. We stand for what is good, what is virtuous, what is noble. And for those trying to incite violence against us, those trying to foment hatred, what do you have? You have nothing. You are nothing. Your wickedness, your jealousy, your envy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All that which presents this as a burgeoning civil war, left versus right, instead of north versus south. And then yesterday, and I'll play some of this audio on radio today, I was driving and listening to the Five. And I heard a food fight between Jessica Tarlov and Greg Gutfeld, which brings so much of this to the fore and really is just emblematic of the debased debate that I see around all the violence. What do I think? I think exactly what I told you on Saturday in my special CNN program, where for an hour with Scott Galloway and Rahm Emanuel and Richard Reeves, we talked about young men. And we ran through all the data about education, about behavioral issues, about the lack of friendship, about male suicides having risen faster than female suicides, men committing suicide 4 times the rate of women, men's participation in the labor force, all of that data. And then said, okay, let's take a look at some of these recent acts of violence. The guy who shot President Trump at the PA rally, 20 years old. The guy who shot the healthcare executive, don't want to say his name, 26. The guy who killed 2 and injured 21 at the Catholic Church in Michigan. Was it Michigan? No, Minnesota, pardon me, 23. Charlie Kirk's presumed assassin, 22. The guy in Dallas yesterday, 29. And before the events of Dallas, we had already booked on today's program Jia Lin Yang from the New York Times, who caught my eye with an incredible analysis under the headline, "Violence Defies Simple Labels." And she lays it all out that the politics are very hard to pin down. Quote, with regard to the shooter of Charlie Kirk, but was the shooter a leftist? As Mr. Kirk's allies and fans have so definitively insisted. His mother told investigators that his political views had recently moved to the left. That doesn't mean, though, that his act can be mapped cleanly into the familiar left-right axis of 20th century politics. He was not registered with any party. He did not bother voting in the 2024 election. He rarely seemed to surface from the deep end of the internet, where he learned a language that included anti-fascist slogans divorced from coherent ideology. Politics, it seems, existed alongside video games as a source for a strange swirl of signifiers. The 20-year-old who nearly killed President Trump last summer in Butler remains a cipher, with a profile more typical of a self-annihilating school shooter. That's what I've been saying on air. These guys remind me of school shooters, not politically motivated. The 57-year-old accused of murdering Melissa Hortman, the Democratic state lawmaker in Minnesota, and her husband Mark, was a job-hopping father of 5 and apparently a committed conservative, though he offered no explanation for his acts. The guy who killed the healthcare executive, presumably, had experienced deep physical and psychological pain in the months preceding his act. The messages that he etched on his bullets pointed to his fury at insurance companies. On his Goodread account, one of his favorite quotes came from a religious philosopher. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. The messages may be garbled, but it would be a mistake to regard these assassins as acting outside the realm of politics. Their targets are unquestionably political, and their actions have political consequences. Right, same with Charlie Kirk, same with the guy in Dallas. But here's the key part. Here's the key part. But how can the flames be extinguished today if those wielding the gun are so often solitary ciphers? What is their revolt against? This is the same Times piece. I'm quoting from the Times analysis, and you'll hear my interview with her today. The most dangerous element in our society may be hopelessness. In an era of political realignment and contested ideas about the nation's future, there are far too many Americans who can't imagine any kind of future for themselves. In a 2023 Harvard study, 1 in 3 young adults 18 to 25 reported feeling lonely. More than half said they lacked a sense of meaning or purpose. Others showed despair in a political system that many Americans feel has stopped responding to their most basic needs. Only 19% of young Americans say they trusted the federal government. Measured in the bluntest ways, Americans early in their adulthood are not well. Everything I talk about in the Mingle Project. Now, are some inciting them with their political speech? Absolutely. And is some of that coming from the left? Absolutely. But if you really want to play the game of left versus right, then I remind you of Alex Nowrasteh, who wrote the recent analysis for Cato, which tabulated all of the recent political violence. And I'm not into the you, this, one, but if you want to look at the data, most of it comes from the right, not the left. Again, I'm not, that's besides the point to me. And no, some of you said, oh, Michael, you had that guy on, and didn't the DOJ pull down his analysis? No, that was not the Cato analysis that got pulled. This stands the test of time. And it's not only Alex Nowrasteh, and it's not only Jia Lin Yang in the New York Times. It's also Robert Pape, who has studied political violence for 30 decades. Now, I'm going to tell you something. I'm doing this in real time. I sent Dr. Pape a note earlier today, and I said to him, hey, J.D. Vance says this is all coming from the left. And I said, I like to quote you. Okay, good. He responded. Let me just see. What did I say to Dr. Pape? I always like to quote you accurately on both radio and television. What is the short answer to J.D. Vance saying most of the political violence is coming from the left? And here it is, 7:52 a.m., Robert A. Pape, professor, political science department, director of the Chicago Project on Security and Threats. Quote, with respect, Vice President Vance is not correct. From political assassination attempts to violent protests, there is overwhelming evidence that from 2019 to today, political violence is coming almost equally from both the right and the left. And I would be glad to brief him. Great. There it is. He's the expert. I'm not the expert. But I think that there's a very distorted argument now taking place where people are, well, all these lefties, no, our young men are sick. Our young men are ill. Our society is sick. That's what the Mingle Project is all about. I see it so clearly. I really do. We've gone our separate ways, fueled by technology. We have fragmented as a society, and we need common experience. And that's what I'm trying to do. Please watch the Mingle movie where I lay it all out, and keep pace with me and watch these episodes that I continue to release, because that's the answer. Restoring common experience, mentoring these young men. Richard Reeves, what did he say to me on CNN last weekend? He said to me, something you can all do. I said, give me something practical, something tangible that we can all do. And he said, reach out for somebody who's in your orbit and is struggling, a young person who is struggling. Mentor them. I'll say one final thing. I mentioned the episode 1 Mingle guests, and I said Gretchen Carlson, and I said that we had Todd Bernstein, and I said as well that we had Richard Louv. Jim Vandehei was really the anchor of that show. He, the co-founder and president of Axios. And man, he's on the case, and he published something today which is really great about what we all can do to turn this around. It's much broader than just the left and the right finger pointing. So anyway, I've got more to say, and I'll say it on radio. Today's poll question at Smerconish.com: is the rise in political violence a reflection of deeper societal issues, or is it primarily driven by political rhetoric? I say it is deeper societal issues for all the reasons that I've just outlined. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, please, to the YouTube channel. Okay, gang? Appreciate all of you, and I'll see you on radio.